You're listening to B2B Tech Talk with Ingram Micro, where we share topics that will inspire business growth and help you stay ahead of advances in technology before they become mainstream. This episode is sponsored by Ingram Micro Xvantage, the game-changing platform that will transform your business potential and reshape how customers see you. Welcome to B2B Tech Talk. On today's episode, I am so delighted to have a couple of the brightest people I have heard from and listened to, and they are just amazing when it comes to security architecture. I'm introducing John Schaefer and Joëlle Sniatenchuk of Ingram Micro. Welcome to the program.
Well, thank you for having us, Nina.
Thank you, Nina. Great to be here.
Yeah, you bet. Joëlle, let's start with you. First of all, how on earth did you get in this business? I know this has been, having been in technology in my whole career, it's very much a male-dominated, has been historically a male-dominated business, but a lot more women are getting involved. How did you get in this industry
In fact,
and survive?
what I will say, yes, it has been surviving. It's been quite the interesting journey. So I actually earned my degree in biology. So I had an honors biology degree, and then joined a telecommunications company in which I was focused really on customer service and the customer experience, and enhancing that experience. Through that, I really developed a love for technology, and then transitioned into high tech, working really in networking, then into as cloud industry started to grow, got into the cloud business, and also a lot of automation and development within the cloud business in order to help build security, remove manual practices, which are, we all know, prone to error, and really started to get into the identity and access management space, which really that's how I started transitioning into the security world. And with a background that I have in all business IT, what I find is I'm able to really, with me in cybersecurity, able to really understand my stakeholders' world and how to bring those things together and bring them along in the journey of improving our overall security.
So you went from dissecting frogs to dissecting processes so you could better understand them and create best practices.
That is
That's
right.
that's amazing. Okay, John, let's turn to you. You've been in this industry for over 35 years. What was the biggest threat then, and what is it now?
Well, back 35 years ago, the internet was really in its infancy, and the threats were more focused at government and large institutions that were starting to collaborate on the internet. And it was a lot different. The prevailing thought process back then was, if I put a hard shell of control around my organization, I'm going to keep everybody out, but I don't need to worry about what's going on the inside. And we've really seen a change in that. And it's been a long evolution, but it's now realized we have to take as much care on the inside of the organization as well as folks who are outside, because a threat can come from anywhere. If a bad actor accidentally gets inside the organization, we have to be able to identify that and limit where they can go and take care of it before any real damage can be caused. So it's the biggest change is really the awareness of how important cybersecurity is overall. It's not something that can be done as an afterthought. It has to be really thought about as new systems, new processes are built.
Joëlle, you joined Ingram Micro, I think about a year ago. And tell me what that experience has been like working for a company, a big distributor that's going through a big transformation. Obviously security when you're building a platform like we have Xvantage is paramount. What has that experience been like for you?
It's been an incredible journey. Seeing the organization grow and its digital transformation and how quickly technology is being implemented, and teams are looking to go to market so quickly with solutions. It's been a really interesting time of growth, most certainly. And in fact, joining the organization just after the pandemic and working, remotely, has been really interesting, particularly since I was in my previous organization for 10 years. So, learning a different method of working and with all new different people. What I have found with Ingram is truly, the people are truly engaged and really invested in the organization's success. And that's been an absolute blessing to do and be a part of. I think the most interesting, even though I've worked for global companies before, I think the most interesting thing for me is to see what a truly global company looks like. Having, employees on all continents, and learning to collaborate remotely with all of these different groups and different minds has been a very interesting journey for me. Absolutely.
You know what's interesting? I don't know if a lot of our listeners may know this, but what's fascinating to me about a company like Ingram Micro, we have 30,000 employees, but there's not a day that goes by that I don't feel like I work for a small company, a company where everyone is so engaged with one another. It feels very small, and for a company of our size, I think that's pretty incredible. When do you think, again, you've been in this industry for a long time, when did security get a seat at the table? Because it used to be security was embedded deep down in IT somewhere, maybe had a closet office, right? So somebody sitting in an office going, I'm monitoring the firewall to see what's coming through. When did it change? When did people get really serious and say, you know what? We need to have like CISOs and we've got to get serious about this.
Yeah, and I remember those days where you had the locked door where folks like me were behind it, and every now and then they'd open the door, push in some food and close it, and made sure we were caffeinated. But yeah, it's been it's interesting right now because some organizations like Ingram Micro really do recognize that information security is a differentiator and brings value in non-obvious ways. Company reputation, trust. When we go through and have to prove ourselves to companies that want to do business with us, that's a differentiator because everybody in the organization takes it seriously. Unfortunately, not every organization is as enlightened. Some are only looking at what the bare minimum is they need to do for ticking that checkbox on a compliance report. And we could spend all day talking about how compliance is not security, but I mean, all we have to do is look at what's going on in the news right now. MGM casinos have been down for 5 days. It was from what's been reported, it was a relatively simplistic attack that took them down. Now, they're likely to recover, but if a smaller organization were hit with an attack like that, they're probably done. And I think that speaks to the awareness within various organizations of just how important cybersecurity is.
That's incredible. Speaking of the news, you hear stories like major airlines when they go down. Now, they often don't report um, if it was an attack. I hardly ever hear that. Matter of fact, I just hear the system issues, system troubles, glitch in the system. Glitch has probably been the word I've heard the most. But I have to believe that there have been times when they obviously get hit as well, and it brings their entire network down, and that's huge for the travel industry.
And it's going to become more obvious as things like that happen. The Security and Exchange Commission is now requiring organizations to report a material event, basically anything that could impact stock prices or their shareholders, within 4 days of finding out that something has happened, unless it's a matter of national security. So that ruling is about a month or so old, if I recall correctly. So we're going to see more and more of that transparency coming out. And that will help all organizations understand that this is not just a bunch of geeks who are oversensitive. It's really something that is a business differentiator.
And Joelle, as connected as we are, businesses, again, using Ingram Micro as an example, you have the core company. We are connected to thousands and thousands and thousands of companies around the world. It's not just our network. We are a connected company, and it blows my mind where when I hear stories about a myopic view of security, a very insular view, and it's all of our problem. It's not just the company's problem. It's touching many, many people. Um, right? How do you feel about that? It's mind blowing to me when I read these stories in the news.
It is, and the world is so interconnected. And Ingram Micro, as you've said, is very interconnected with all of the technology, and we are technology distributor. And we are so engaged with so many other companies, whether they are vendors that we leverage or that we, provide to our customers, solutions that we're providing to our customers. Absolutely. And that's where securing your supply chain really comes in. So when we hear about securing the supply chain, it's end to end. And really, we are all dependent on that. It reminds me, 3 days ago, I went to my weather app and it said the weather's currently not available. And I'm like, I have never, since I had the weather app, seen the weather not being available. I'm like, this is really strange. Then to come to find out a few hours later, when I was back on the app, they had an announcement that in fact one of their technology suppliers had a security breach, and it impacted their services, right? So it really highlights the interconnectivity, and we take for granted something like a weather app, and how even regardless of what industry or business you're in, it could be incredibly disruptive to an organization.
Absolutely, and disruptive and destructive because it could destroy their reputation as well. John, you wrote a series of articles called Security versus Convenience. What was that about?
All of us make hundreds of choices a day, and frequently convenience is one of the things that factors into the decision we make. I mean, you just have to look at the food delivery services that are out there. Those have sprung up because people are making a choice because that's very convenient. I can order online. I can have it delivered. I don't have to interact with anybody. I can just go get it from my porch. And those types of decisions of prioritizing convenience over other things really permeate the security landscape as well. I'd be willing to bet a good chunk of your listeners, for a long time, and maybe even still today, don't have a password, PIN code, or biometric lock on their mobile device or their personal computer because it's too difficult to punch that in whenever they want to use their device, or they don't have their device lock after a certain amount of time. So those are just a couple examples, and it goes much further than that. It's the consequences, though, that people aren't thinking about. If I lose my device and I don't have a passcode on it, anybody who finds that device now has access to all of the information I have on it. If I don't put security on my home Wi-Fi network, anybody can connect to it. And if they do something illegal, it appears to all the authorities as if that traffic came from me. So there is a short-term gain without really thinking about what it means if I don't have security in place across everything.
That also goes to home automation, right? We sometimes our light bulbs are light paths, right? Somebody was saying to me recently that they just installed new light paths and it required multi-factor authentication upon putting them through. So there is convenience in our life, and we need to continue to think of all of those aspects, right, that we're implementing in our life that are so we take for granted, right, that are so ingrained in what we do.
Yeah, and the smart light bulbs is actually another great example. On most home routers today, you can define separate networks for getting out to the internet or for your Internet of Things like the light bulb or your television for streaming services, and it will separate the traffic. But if you do that, you can't use your app that's probably connected to the main data internet connection to control your lights because they're on a different network. So it's all of these trade-offs and decisions that folks have to make, and some of those can have unintended consequences.
Right. And the information that's gathered from them speaks to our lifestyle. I mean, we don't even realize it. And it's not that they're actually penetrating, they're just gathering data because they can. And they know so much about the way we live and the temperature of our home. And it's mind-boggling. You guys have, first of all, Ingram Micro is very fortunate to have folks like you of your caliber. This has been just so eye-opening. But I know that you have a presentation that's going to be coming out soon. It's going to be available on Xvantage and some other places as well. It's on security architecture. Joëlle, before we go, can you give me an overview of what you're going to cover?
Yes, absolutely. So through the presentation itself, what we are covering is how architecture really is a requirement from design on. And you really need to consider throughout the entire life cycle of any solutions that you're building within your organization, that you need to always consider architecture as part of your foundation in order to maintain a strong security posture within your organization.
I am so looking forward to that coming out and listening to it. Thank you both so much and have a great rest of your day. You've been listening to Ingram Micro's B2B Tech Talk. Thanks for tuning in. If you like this episode and you want to continue the conversation online, use hashtag B2B Tech Talk.